Hey, what's happening, guys? Matt here. It's been a while since I said I was going to start doing these talking head videos, so here I am. Um, yeah. So I had said in a previous video that I was going to start doing a few talking head videos leading up to the release of the new album, which I've been hard at work at getting done. In fact, just this morning, I got my first mix of the last of my originals for this album. So we're almost there. I've got some supporting covers I want to do, and then I'll dive into mastering and be ready to release. So we are getting there. But I had said that there are some topics that I'm covering in this album that I think could warrant a little bit more context as far as my personal views versus my views as an artist versus what I think is appropriate, and what I'm for putting out to the world and what I'm trying to communicate. Like, there's some nuance there that I thought videos like this could help to address. And a big part of it, and I'd said this in the previous video, is just communicating my thoughts in a more clear and direct way for posterity. And when I say for posterity, I really mean my kid. It's something that I've been thinking about. Like, if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, how's he going to know me, know who I am, who I was, and have an understanding of what I was really trying to communicate. So that's all part of this project. And why I'm doing some of these talking head videos, which isn't really, like, I do that on the Audio Mutt channel, but not so much on Matt Hellion. So that's where this is coming from, where it's relevant. Got my notes here. So anyway, I thought I'd start this project, this little side thing, kind of talking about me, where I'm from, my background, and how we even got here. So yeah, pardon me if I'm looking down at my notes. I tried to do this just freewheeling a couple months ago, and it did not go well. So my real name's Matt Jones. I am currently located in the North Texas area, but I'm originally from West Texas. When I was a little kid, I did enjoy music, but I wasn't a musician. I was more interested in being a scientist. I was fascinated with physics and entomology, and that sort of stuff. That was kind of where I came from. And my musical upbringing, my dad listened to a lot of arena rock. He liked Quiet Riot. He liked Bachman Turner Overdrive. Not arena rock, but he listened to a lot of Three Dog Night. And he also, he was boomer, grew up in the 70s. He was born in the 50s. So yeah, he was prime age in the 70s. So he was he's really into funk, and that sort of thing. And my mom was all country. I mean, every Saturday was clean the house day. And for clean the house day, she would put on Brooks and Dunn's greatest hits in the CD player, and we would clean the house and listen to Brooks and Dunn and Alan Jackson and Brad Paisley. That was my musical upbringing, and throughout elementary school, I was a pretty cliche kid. Listened to all the horrible cliche 90s pop stuff. Even in elementary school, when they were trying to teach us music with the recorder and singing the solfege, none of it really clicked. I didn't really enjoy or appreciate any of it. But there was a few things that happened during that time that I feel like were really formative for me, and one of which was playing Myst with my dad. That was one of my first video game experiences, was sitting in Dad's lap playing Myst, as well as playing Donkey Kong Country with Dad. Those were our video game things. And another thing that really shaped who I am was a series of lessons that Dad always tried to teach me, which was applying Newton's laws not just to the world of physics, but to social situations and to life. So um, nothing happened around the house that I didn't frequently hear, well, kiddo, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And, well, an object in motion stays in motion unless acted upon by an outside force. So these were things that just got hammered into me, not necessarily in the context of physics, but just in the context of life. And that it started to shape a pattern in my mind of questioning and thinking about action, reaction, action, consequence, and just kind of the way my brain works through things. So, then we go into junior high, and that's where I started to get involved in music. So I started on trumpet, playing trumpet in the school band. That was my first instrument. In fact, I've got my trumpet sitting over here. I've been trying to practice it a little bit more. But I didn't have a whole lot of exposure to other musical genres quite yet. It was kind of later in the junior high years that started to develop. I was kind of the overachiever kid in junior high. I was a nerd, still a nerd, always been a nerd. I was in AP classes and band and playing tennis and then doing martial arts, and it all got to be too much, and I burned out really early. And towards the end of junior high, when I was still involved in all this stuff, there's a guy who I knew from Taekwondo named Steve, who was really into music. And so he asked me what I was listening to, and I told him, he's like, nah, man, here's what you need to listen to. And he brought in a burned copy of Metallica's Black Album, which was my first real exposure to heavy metal and hard rock. And then had another buddy, Justin, who he was more into like the classic rock stuff. He listened to a lot of Aerosmith, AC/DC, the Stones, Beatles. That was kind of his arena. And so he started bringing that to my attention. And that's when my mind got kind of opened to the wider world of music and what it could be and what it could mean. And that really started me on my journey. So as a result of that, of the burnout and everything that was going on, in high school, I checked out. I quit. I went to regular classes. I quit playing tennis. I quit the band. All of the regimented, overly structured and intense stuff. I didn't do martial arts anymore, really, except for like helping out at the dojang every now and then. I was just kind of done with everything, and I just took up skateboarding and was a bit of a skater. And then I was hanging out with a buddy of mine, Darby, that we've known each other since kindergarten. Like, it's since we were 5 years old. We're going on like we've been friends for over 30 years at this point. Well, not at this point then, but at this point now. And so I was over hanging out at his house, and he had this beat up old Squire Strat that, he was a rock guy. He's introduced me to a lot of the even heavier metal of the 2000s, right? He's the one who started bringing me into the world of Slipknot and Trivium and Bullet for My Valentine and all those things that really shaped a lot of my musical style. And he handed me this guitar and said, "Here, Jones, you think you know music? I'm going to teach you something." And he taught me Sweet Dreams Are Made of These, the Marilyn Manson version, but he taught it to me wrong, I found out later. Oddly enough, I still like the wrong version better. I don't know if it's just because that's the way I learned it, but there's more minor key tonality to the wrong way I learned it that I actually really enjoy. So he shows me this riff, right? And crashes out, goes to bed. Wakes up the next morning and is like, Jones, what are you doing, man? What? Did you sleep? And I just go, I don't know. What time is it? He says, it's morning. And I guess I didn't. I had stayed up all night working on this riff, trying to get it down. And from that moment forward, I was hooked on guitar. I went home, told my parents, I want to learn guitar. I need to learn guitar. And they bought me they bought me an Ibanez GIO, which I've got back here that I recently changed out pickups, and I've got a video of that over on the Audio Mutt channel. So if you want to, go check that out. But yeah, so that started me on my guitar journey, and then I started talking with Steve about stuff, and he started coming over on the weekends, and we would jam together, and that kind of leads us to the story of where the Matt Hellion name even came from. Because if you know me very well at all, I'm not what you would typically consider to be a Hellion, right? I'm not out there on motorcycles, drinking whiskey, and fucking shit up. That's not me. So the name Matt Hellion kind of seems a bit odd. I have a personality that questions everything and everyone. That's always been my thing. And kind of rebellious in that sense, even though I can be a bit of a rule follower, but I tend to follow just the rules that I think are good and just, or that I create for myself. Anyway, so Steve and I are jamming, having a fun time, doing AC/DC covers and writing stupid, silly songs that make no sense. And we come up with these characters for each other, right? So I was playing on my Dean ML and was really into the heavy stuff. Well, heavy for the time, like not as into like Norma Jean kind of heavy, but Slipknot heavy, Mudvayne, that type of stuff. Disturbed. So I'm in that arena. Steve's in the AC/DC, Def Leppard, and Metallica kind of arena. He was playing on he had the Green Monster back here. That was his guitar at the time. He had another one that he had reverse wound the pickups on, but that's neither here nor there. Anyway, so I became the Hellion. That was my character whenever we were jamming together. And because we did a lot of comedic stuff, he was the cupcake of death. Just high school, college age kids being dumb and having fun. And we had a blast. And we wrote some tunes that would go on to eventually be half decent after some work. But yeah, we had a good time, and that's where that name kind of came from. And around that time was when I started getting that was when online gaming started becoming more of a thing, beyond the Battle.net StarCraft stuff where I got started with online gaming. But got a PlayStation, and so then my gamer tag became Matt Hellion, and eventually whenever I would get an Xbox, it would be Matt Hellion, and then when I'd get on Steam, it would be Matt Hellion. And this Matt Hellion character just kind of became a persona that I used that really came from a silly and innocent place. But it became part of me. It in a really weird way. I went to a few parties and I drank and smoked pot a couple times, just like any other high schooler and college kid. But again, I was, because I was such an outcast, because I never fit in anywhere, because I never belonged, and a lot of that was probably due to my undiagnosed at the time autism. That's it. Kind of fed into that, this idea of the Hellion, the outsider, the guy who just doesn't fit in or belong anywhere, and that resulted in me really embracing that identity. And another part of it is just, I was raised to think about things, to question things. And we'll talk more about a lot of that in some other videos. But basically, I've always been the kind of person who questioned and didn't take anything as given or as rote. I was a thinker, and I was always searching for truth. And again, we'll talk about specifics in different videos, but I have the similar approach to religion and politics, and I'm always thinking. And because of that, that's kind of how I interpreted the word Hellion as far as how it applies to me, is the idea of someone who isn't afraid to not belong, and who can think critically and think through things and not follow the herd. So then we go into college, and I get back into band. I joined the school, they called it the pep band, but because we didn't really have a marching program at the time, so it was just, there was a season where we would sit in the bleachers during the basketball and volleyball games and play for those, and then there's concert season, just like most other college bands or high school bands, whatever. So, and I would do double duty, so I would play trumpet some songs, I would play guitar some songs, and that's where I would really deepen my music education. So, I minored in music, so that's where I started taking music theory courses, and I took 2 semesters of jazz band where I played bass for the jazz band, that's where I really kind of dove into like using the pentatonic scale. I took a semester of violin, I took a semester of drum kit, I took a semester of classical guitar. I just took semester after semester of all these different courses to broaden my understanding of music. And then in addition to that, I started playing in some local bands. I played with New Day's Dawn for a while, which that was a whole thing. I've actually started as a sound tech who they wouldn't let sound tech. That's a whole other story. And then when the lead guitarist left, I already knew all the songs. They auditioned several people, and eventually Jason, the other guitarist, was like, well, Matt, why don't you try it? You've been here long enough. And so I was able to play the songs, and so I got the gig and played with them for a while, until some drama caused me to leave. And yeah, I was an English major, studied a lot of literary works, things of that nature. And at one point I was going to be a teacher, but then I started diving more into the teacher certification courses and realized that not for me, that I felt like the system was too corrupt, and that I was going to end up more miserable than I wanted to be. So I just chose to avoid that path. Kind of made a similar decision when I started college as a business major. And there's a lot of things in the courses that I thought were corrupt that were being taught to me as good lessons, right? When the professor's talking about a company owning the rights to rainwater in a different country, and instead of that being like an ethics question, it being a lesson on this is how you can shore up your portfolio by exploiting natural resources. And I'm going, no, this is wrong. And when I started seeing enough of that in these business courses, I checked out. I could not go along with it anymore. I decided that the system was more likely to corrupt me than I was to create a better business. So yeah, that's what caused that major change. And then I went to, after I graduated and realized that, well, there's not jack squat I can do with this English degree, since I decided I'm not going to teach, but I wanted to graduate on time. I didn't want to change my major again and have to spend several thousand more dollars on another 2, 3, 4 semesters. So I went ahead and graduated with my English degree, my music minor, and then I changed tactic and went to audio school. Yeah, another fantastic decision. Which I don't know, I should clarify that audio school is actually really cool and really awesome for me, and I learned a lot. I would not be near the musician and engineer I am today if I hadn't gone to South Plains College and for those 2 years and studied audio. I learned things about live sound. I learned things about studio engineering. I learned things about music performance. I learned things about shooting video and video editing. And I learned it from people who have worked in the fields and who were working in those fields. Like, it was awesome. And it was from an accredited college that gave me an actual accredited degree rather than a certificate. So yeah, and it was affordable. Like, I didn't take on any debt doing that. I worked my way through college, and it was 2 hours away. Worked my way through college and paid for it, and just lived. I had to live with my parents, so I wasn't also paying rent, but I was able to pay my tuition with what I made working part-time at a gym. And yeah, so like, I don't regret that decision. It was, I think, a wonderful decision for me personally. However, having gotten out of that college and then looking around at the world around me and realizing that that it's a field that the piece of paper doesn't mean anything. No one cares about that piece of paper. People care, like, what matters is what you've put out there, what you've produced. So yeah, I've got 2 degrees that mean a whole lot of nothing. I am one of those cautionary tales, and I'm fully aware of it, but it is what it is. And during that time, I was playing with, after New Days Dawn broke up, and then a couple of the band members decided to start a new group, and so I started playing with Silence the Chaos. I was playing bass for them for a while, but I'm not a bassist. It's what we learned during that project, is that I was not a good enough bassist to play complicated bass parts that were actually complementary of the music. So I resorted to following the rhythm guitar and was getting extremely bored because I was lead guitar for New Days Dawn. I wouldn't say I'm a great lead guitar player, but I can fill that role if needed. But I'm a guitar player and liked playing guitar things. And being put in that role of bass player when you're not a bass player, like, a good bass player can do really cool, amazing things and make really interesting parts. I wasn't that person. Which resulted in me just doing the bare minimum, which resulted in me bored. And I tried to shore that up and get involved by singing backup vocals. And when there was critique on that, it really hit me kind of hard, because I had been working pretty hard on my aggressive vocals. But the problem I've come to realize was not what I was doing, is how frequently I was doing it. I wasn't filling the role of a backup vocalist. I was just singing with the singer pretty much the whole time and screwing up songs, honestly. So that was something that I had to learn through experience. So yeah, and that brings us back to Matt Hellion. who is Matt Hellion? What is Matt Hellion? Matt Hellion is the moniker I use for online gaming and publishing my music. And yeah, I wouldn't say I'm truly a Hellion, but for me, being a rebel is going your own way, making your own choices, and being willing to live with the consequences of those choices, and understanding the consequences of those choices, and making those conscious decisions. It's not just rabble rousing for the sake of rabble rousing. But that's me and my interpretation. I know that's not necessarily dictionary definition. It's just kind of how I feel about it. The name's also a reminder. So as my opinions and attitudes towards religion and faith have changed, part of me has wrestled with this moniker, and whether or not it's appropriate to continue. But then I see a lot of what's happening in the world, and a lot of this will be in future videos. I see how the religious act versus how I feel through my studies that we are supposed to act. And again, that comes into making those conscious choices and being willing to question and criticize. And I feel like the moniker of Matt Hellion is a reminder of my imperfections. It's a reminder of my weaknesses. It's a reminder of my past. And in both good ways and bad ways, right? It's a reminder of the mistakes I've made, and it's a reminder of those good times I shared with Steve. That's where it comes from. And I don't want to forget that. I don't ever want to forget that I'm a messed up human being who has made more than his fair share of mistakes. And I don't want to ever forget where I came from. I don't want to ever forget the good times I've had with my buddies. I don't ever want to forget what it means to be a struggling artist just trying to create music with integrity. I don't want to forget any of that. And so kind of like my tattoos are reminders of things like, this is that playing with Steve. This was the design that I designed for our logo. These are parts of me, and I don't want to forget them. I need to latch on to those and remember those so that I can move forward with integrity, and so I can be the kind of artist that I want to be. I've got a note here about something that my buddy Justin used to tell me, because he went into the Navy, and he's a good guy. He actually lives here in this area now, and I'm really glad to have him and his wife present to help us, because I couldn't do any of this without their support. But about the time that Justin was going into the Navy and starting basic training and stuff, he would tell me, Matt, do not ever join the military. Don't. I'm going, oh yeah, you don't think I could take it? And he's like, well, okay, I think you could handle the physical parts of it. I think you could handle it. I think you would get kicked out for talking back to your drill instructor. And he would tell me, he's like, I can just see you right now with your drill instructor or whoever saying, drop and give me 20. And you just look at him going, why? Because that's who I am. That's how I've always been. And again, that's a big part of the Matt Hellion thing, is just that guy. Being that guy who's like, oh yeah? Why? Okay, you think that? That's great. Good for you. Why? And just being willing to question everything and everyone. I'm not afraid of questioning my beliefs. I'm not afraid of questioning my religion. I'm not afraid of questioning my socio-political views. Because through questioning, we can arrive at truth. And it's okay to be wrong. If I look back at this video 10, 20 years from now and just think, yep, I was right, 100% right, then I haven't grown. I want to be able to look back at my past and go, man, I had it so wrong. And that's part of my last point that I have on my notes here. Is it's just, the name Matt Hellion is a reminder to stay true to oneself, but to not be immovable. To be willing to grow and change and develop and become a better person, become a better artist. Yeah. And so that's where it comes from. That's the whole Matt Hellion spiel. If you know me and you see my stuff, you're gonna think, Matt Hellion, what the fuck is this guy trying to, prove or pull over or whatever? Nothing. It's a funny name that I came up with a buddy decades ago that really means something to me and that I've latched onto. And it just happens to be kind of conveniently marketable, if I'm being 100% honest. There's not another Matt Hellion out there, and yeah, that's how it is. And so part of the challenge with producing this music is expressing myself in a way that has integrity. And so there's going to be other subjects that I touch on, that I talk about my experience with religion and how I got to where I am and what I believe. Parts where I talk about some social political views, and just continue on with that. But I wanted to tell the story of who I am, where I came from, how I got here, so that, yeah, again, if I have a heart attack tomorrow, this story will be out there, so that my kiddo can look and see this little snapshot of who his dad was. Because I know nobody else really cares. I'm making this video like I'm some big hotshot and people really give a crap where Matt Hellion came from, and I know that's not true. Another thing to remember is to stay humble. But anyway, that's it for now. That's this video. And yeah, we will pick up with the next one, whichever subject I decide to tackle next. But thank you. Appreciate you sticking around, checking things out. Stream my music. I hope you like it, and we'll see you next time. Peace.